在飓风桑迪搅局之后，11月6日，谁能笑到最后？
I think on the presidential level, it's 50-50.
他们都曾用抨击中国的方式为自己拉票。
And so a lot of times in elections, people say a lot of things. It's really unfair.
To overcome the misperceptions and the stereotypes that Americans may have about China, we really need to encourage more Americans to visit China.
一位草根出身的现任总统与一位名门后裔的高帅富，谁将掌握今后4年白宫的钥匙？美国大选终极对决前瞻。
大家好，欢迎收看今天的风云对话，我是阮慈山。在下个礼拜2，就是6号，11月6号的时候，美国就要举行总统的大选。那么这2天，大家也看到，美国东北部11个州在遭受到飓风山迪的肆虐灾情非常的严重。那么不管是怎么样，这次的美国大选呢，有了这个山迪的缴获，它到底会对美国的选情造成什么样的状况，我们现在还不知道。可是至少我们在过去那么长的时间里面，我们曾经为了美国的今年的选情，我们访问过非常多的政要。那么我们把他们几个比较重要的综合一下，来看看他们对美国这次选举到底有什么样的感想。比如包括美国的驻华大使骆家辉、前任国防部长科恩，还有前任的芝加哥市长戴利在内，同时我们也找到了几位欧洲的政客，看他们对美国新总统的选举选完以后有什么样的期望。我们做一个综合的专辑来为大家解惑，然后看看这次的美国总统大选呢，在各方人的思维之下，到底是一个什么样的场面？请看。
就在美国总统选战进入最焦灼的时刻，10月29日，美东海岸有史以来最大的登陆飓风桑迪，以强大的破坏力打乱了2位总统候选人的竞选部署。新泽西被淹，纽约地铁停运，数百万居民断电，更有至少100余人丧生。桑迪所造成的灾情，把总统奥巴马以及共和党候选人罗姆尼的精力，从争取摇摆州的选票上拉到了应对自然灾害中。桑迪也由此成了本届美国大选的变量。
Musical, you are Republican, right? What do you expect now?
Well, I think the Republicans are in a very good position in terms of taking even more seats in the Congress, because the numbers really favor Republicans now. There are far more Democrats who are vulnerable to being voted out of office than there are Republicans. So I think there'll be a gain on the part of the Republicans in the Senate, and I would expect that they will maintain their numbers in the House. So I think Congress will still be a very significant power base for the Republicans. I think on the presidential level, it's 50-50. Right now, it is so close that they're tied, virtually tied. And so there are some things that favor President Obama. Namely, he's president of the United States. He has what they call the bully pulpit. He's has the microphone, right, and can speak on any day to the American people, and he has that power. By the same token, there are economic issues which put him at a disadvantage. Our economy is very flat. The economic numbers, the employment numbers are not good. And I doubt if that's going to change very much between now and the election. If the issue is going to turn, or the election will turn on the basis of the state of the economy, then I think that Governor Romney certainly has a chance to win.
在桑迪侵袭过后，10月31日，美国盖洛普公司公布了最新的民调结果。与选民支持率持续焦灼的态势有所不同，过半美国人认为现任总统奥巴马能够赢得连任，另有约1/3认为罗姆尼将会胜出。而在这次选民中，奥巴马与罗姆尼的支持率依旧不相上下。
Mr. Daly, from the Democrats, what do you see the Obama situation now?
Well, I'm more of a private citizen. I've been supported President Obama over the years. And like anything else, when you go before the voters, it's always a tough election because you never know where the voters are. You may think you're ahead, but you don't take anything for granted. And so you have to show how well, which he can, how well he's going to basically deal with the problems facing America.
目前，在美国联邦国会参众两院的席位中，共和党人的比例占优，这也就意味着在今年的总统大选中，罗姆尼所在的共和党拥有较多的选举人票数。而在另一边，奥巴马执政4年内，美国经历了有史以来最严重的金融海啸。虽然经济萧条的形势近年来有所好转，但失业率仍居高不下。这对罗姆尼阵营来讲，无疑又是个利好消息。
For the past statistics, any president, if the unemployment is above than 7.3%, he cannot run. But Governor Mitt Romney, as a politician, how can he convince the U.S. voters that you elect me? I'll be doing the...
As a matter of fact, he's coming under increased criticism. There are many people in the party and certainly in the business community who want him to lay out a plan.
Right.
Rather than simply say, trust me, I'll get the economy moving, and say, what's the plan? I think the pressure is going to be on him to say, no, give us some examples of exactly what you will do to get the economy moving again. And so that's why these debates are important. And the voters they'll make up their mind at the last moment almost as they walk into the polling booths. Who do they like? Who do they think best reflects their interest? It could be on the Democratic side, they feel that on labor, or on the middle and lower income groups. On the Republican side, they could say business, and the middle and upper middle income have a natural appeal. It's going to be very important.
而从某种程度上说，桑迪或许是给奥巴马带来的一份竞选小礼。近2天来，总统奥巴马改变了前往摇摆州拉票的行程，而是到受灾最严重的新泽西去慰问灾民。就连罗姆尼的支持者新泽西州州长克里斯蒂也对奥巴马此行的表现大加赞叹。而对罗姆尼来说，最后一周正是他投入广告最疯狂的时刻。各大媒体关于飓风的报道却也铺天盖地，抢走了民众的注意力。
On June and July, Governor Romney's fundraising is ahead of President Obama. But on August, Obama come back again. Does that mean anything to you?
We spend what I would say is an extraordinary amount of money on campaigns. Think about it. President Obama will probably raise about $1 billion. The Republicans will raise and spend about $1 billion. And then there are the outside groups that are not, quote, affiliated with anyone in terms of identified as being Republican or Democratic, but they will raise close to $1 billion. So you're looking at money going into our system. And during the last few weeks of the campaign, what does that do? They saturate television airwaves with ads. So who has money really makes a difference going into the final weeks. It takes a lot of money to organize all the people to get out the vote. And so a lot of money will be spent. And I'd venture to say Republicans will outspend President Obama going into the final weeks. I think that we will have more in terms of fundraising than the Democrats will. And that may make a difference, but it may not. I mean, that's why I say a debate can be important. Governor Romney might be coming up and President Obama going down, and suddenly something happens during a debate and it switches around. So anything can happen between now and then. It can all change in a moment, and that's why in politics it's a very short life in terms of predictability. Anything can change.
In terms of the money spending, $2 billion, that's a lot of money to spend in one single presidential election. As a politician, is that worries you? Because
I object to what's taking place. I think that when you have that kind of money, it is corrupting to the system.
Right.
We found that during the Watergate period that I was very much involved with. We had power and we had money that was unaccounted for. And I think with this volume of money coming into it, it has a very corrupting influence on the system. And unfortunately, members of Congress, as well as presidential candidates, spend a good deal of time on the phone going to fundraisers, raising money, whether on the left or right. That people who contribute money to you then expect something in return.
Yes.
They want something in return, and I think that's something that is out of control. So I think it's not good for our country. I'd like to see less being spent. I'd like to see shorter campaigns that go on too long. And frankly, as soon as this campaign is over, They'll be getting ready for the next campaign.
So what do you see? Where's the solution?
It may come to have to have a constitutional amendment. I don't think it would ever pass. In other words, the First Amendment is fundamental, and the courts have always ruled that contributing to campaigns is an exercise in free speech. I still think there need to be limitations in terms of something reasonable. Now they are totally unlimited, and in many cases, the groups that are putting the money in don't have to be identified until after the election.
Yes.
So this is not something that's good for the system. I think we need reform. Senator McCain tried to pass legislation several years ago, which the court ruled against. But I think he was right in his goals, saying too much money is being raised and too much is being spent. And we need to get back to being responsible and not always chasing the money all the time. I'm not very optimistic about getting money out of politics. I think it's here, unfortunately, to stay and will only get worse.
在飓风桑迪搅局之后，11月6日，谁能笑到最后？
I think on the presidential level, it's 50-50.
他们都曾用抨击中国的方式为自己拉票。
And so a lot of times in elections, people say a lot of things. It's really unfair.
To overcome the misperceptions and the stereotypes that Americans may have about China, we really need to encourage more Americans to visit China.
一位草根出身的现任总统与一位名门后裔的高帅富，谁将掌握今后4年白宫的钥匙？美国大选终极对决前瞻。
欢迎回来。这次美国两党的总统候选人啊，一直到10月30号为止，两个人民调差距依然很近。在10月30号《纽约时报》做的民意调查当中，两个人差距的让大家非常的意外。在这次的民调当中，奥巴马以48%的这个民众稍微领先罗姆尼得到47%的支持，47跟48事实上就是在民调上正负3%的这个差距误差上面呢，几乎是平手。所以呢，在他们的辩论之后呢，大家到现在为止啊，虽然投票只有好几天的时间，3-4天的时间，可是大家对于这场选战的结果依然非常的难预测。所以呢，也有人说可能是美国历史上最难预测而且相距最少的一次总统的选举。接下来请看美国就有几位政要跟欧洲的政要为我们所做的这场竞选的分析。
10月16日和22日，奥巴马与罗姆尼进行了总统竞选的第2轮与第3轮电视辩论。在这场剑拔弩张、针锋相对的辩论中，两人都不失时机地涉及了中国议题，有些措辞显然并不适当。
In part by holding down artificially the value of their currency. It holds down the prices of their goods. It means our goods aren't as competitive and we lose jobs. That's got to end. They're making some progress. They need to make more. That's why on day one I will label them a currency manipulator.
Number 2, trade. I'll crack down on China.
When he talks about getting tough on China, keep in mind that Governor Romney invested in companies that were pioneers of outsourcing to China and is currently investing in countries, in companies that are building surveillance equipment for China to spy on its own folks.
China's both an adversary but also a potential partner in the international community if it's following the rules.
Everybody knows that this year is the election year. So those politicians, especially the candidates, they try to bashing China. This is one of their habits. How can you tell the Chinese people that look, the campaign language don't pay too much attention on it?
Anytime you go through a period of economic downturn, there's a backlash frequently against imports, against immigration, against anything that's perceived to be foreign. Overall, I hope some of the things that they're saying they don't actually intend to do if they get elected, because I think a lot of what they have said would not be good for the U.S.
Right.
他们的辩论从人民币的汇率问题到中美两国的贸易摩擦，再转到就业机会与美国的失业率。 美国《时代周刊》记者舒曼发表文章指出，中国议题被抬升至如此的高度，是因为正在崛起的中国已向超级大国地位进军，这将是美国面临的最重要的外交挑战。华盛顿该如何处理与一个更加富裕、更加自信和更加强大的北京之间的关系，将关乎全球政治格局发展的走向。
2 years ago, American lady writer, she was experienced, said if she doesn't want to buy any product made in China, whether she can survive. At the end up, she wrote a book, say the answer is no. So from your point of view, ordinary American people, they have to those close connections in terms of
No, I don't think so. American people go to a store and look at prices. And they'll buy what they want. They'll take that price over that price. They do it every day. And products being made around the world, they would buy the products. That's what's happening every day. You can go to any store. Yeah, no one says they refuse to buy this or that. When the price is right, they'll buy it. So a lot of times people say that. It would be like the rest of the world looking at our products, say we're not going to buy them. Once you get into that feeling, then you become an isolation. And no one can exist in this century being an isolationist. No country can.
From your opinion, say that China product is really sacrificing U.S. jobs?
There's a big debate on it. We used to say Mexico did that, then China did that. When you look at the jobs that were established many years ago with Industrial Revolution in the last 2 centuries, when you look at the United States, you have to look at how they were brought together. And like anything else, technology has changed the job market. I went into a steel mill, one time employed 3,000 people. They employed 500 people, 80% college graduates, all technology.
Right.
So that's what's happening to manufacturing in America and around the world. It will be more and more technology. And so, like anything else, the jobs will be located where you have talented people, you have good capital, and you have efficiency, and you have innovation. And that's what's going to happen. And so they're going to be around major cities in the world, that type of talent and that type of expertise looking for technology.
Is China really the reason that we're not doing well, or do we have to fundamentally look at what we're doing wrong? Governor Romney will say, I'll be tougher in dealing with China, and he has indicated he's going to sign a declaration of currency manipulation.
Right.
And I think many of us, my associates to be sure, saying that's not the primary issue for the American people. And I think a report that I saw recently, the report said that the Chinese currency is moderately undervalued. So in other words, it should be appreciating. But I think the way to do that is to raise the issue to Chinese officials. I certainly do, and I know many of the business community leaders do, and to deal with it on a straightforward basis without trying to escalate it into a confrontational situation between the United States and China.
So when the Governor Mitt Romney makes so many statements that he's going to take a very stern position against China, is that bother you?
I think that would not bode well for our relations. I know that other people who understand the relationship with China, Dr. Kissinger, Hank Greenberg, others, certainly look at this issue and are concerned about being so rigid, understanding that anybody who takes that position behind the Oval Office, behind the desk, must measure their words, and then it may come to that point. They may decide that after sitting behind that desk and understanding the full responsibilities of that office, that they would want to take that action. But I think it's a mistake to declare it that what you're going to do the first day you walk into the office. There are many things that will come up between now and then that you will have to contend with. It's something that we raise. Understand that once you take office, that you have the responsibility, very huge responsibility in how you contend and deal with other major countries. China being one of the biggest economies in the world, second largest, scheduled to be number one in a not too distant future. So take care, sit down with your counterparts if you get elected, and then work out our differences.
I don't think you have to get into that debate. I think what you look at is how well can we deal with our problems, how we deal with our debt, how well can we deal with our housing markets, how well we can deal with the bureaucracy of the federal government, and how well can we deal with the rest of the world. I think when you're more constructive, the voters will respond to you in a constructive way. And so everybody can bash somebody, everybody can be negative, and you want to be more positive about the future of America and the future of our relationships with China and the world.
Do you think within EU, are those China bashing behavior will happen in EU?
I don't see China bashing happening in the EU. We are a pluralistic society, so you will always have critical voices, right. But you will have critical voices on about anything. I think that we have to convey to the European public a realistic view of China, and that has, as you know better than I, very many facets, very many positive, some in the gray zone. And this is the way we also have to conduct our policy. We have no taboos in our relationship. We talk about the strategic, and we have made a lot of headway over there, but we also talk about what are irritants, such as in the fields of trade or human rights, but always in the spirit of moving forward. And I think the European public broadly recognizes that, and I do not see a basis for China bashing at this point in Europe. Europe has to do a lot with itself, and it's not going to blame anybody else. We know that we have to do our homework, and homework is done at home.
We obviously believe that the United States-China relationship is very strong, and that we both have an interest in the success of each other's countries and each other's economies. And clearly we depend on each other for so many issues, whether it's cooperation on fighting weapons of mass destruction, trying to prevent terrorism around the world, to solving climate change and really helping each country be more energy independent and not so reliant on fossil fuels. But I think that really to overcome the misperceptions and the stereotypes that Americans may have about China, we really need to encourage more Americans to visit China. That includes the media, that includes the members of Congress and policy makers. I think the U.S.-China relationship today is so much stronger and healthier than it was even 10, 15, 20 years ago. And part of that is because we've had so many more Americans coming to visit China, and we also have many foreign journalists who are writing the stories about what China really is all about. And that China is a vast country with a very complex history, culture, a number of ethnic groups, and a very proud tradition and history. And to really understand China, people have to visit China.
这次美国总统的大选啊，在竞选当中，罗姆尼也好，奥巴马也好，经常拿中国来说事儿。所以从我们中国人的观点来看啊，这次总统大选如果选举结果出来了以后，我们所感到关心的就是下一任的美国总统是奥巴马也好，是罗姆尼也好啊，他们对华政策到底有些会有什么样的变化？那么今天在我们节目出现的骆家辉也好，或者是这个前任国防部长科恩，还有其他几位这个戴笠这种人，他们都认为中美关系是美国外交关系上面极其重要的一环，不管谁当选，对于对华政策，对中国以后的经济、政治、外交的政策，都会以美国的利益作为着眼点，都会以大局做着眼。不可能有重大的改变，所以我们在看完这期节目以后，我们就静待美国总统在3天之后的选举结果。感谢您收看今天的风云对话，我们7天之后再见。